Welcome back to Orange Therapy on YouTube. My name is Julie. I'm a professional counselor in South Carolina, and today I'm going to take a break from the cognitive distortions that we've been exploring to talk about what a first session of therapy might look like. Sit back and let's learn together. Welcome back. As we've been going through the holidays, I have been speaking with individuals who have recognized that perhaps they need to go and seek some mental health services, but they're just not sure what that first session is going to look like. And so on top of what people struggle with, the fear of entering a therapeutic space can also carry its own anxiety and becomes prohibitive to people to seeking the care they need. So today I'm going to work to demystify that first session, and I'm going to walk you through what a first experience, at least at Orange Therapy, would maybe look like. So when you enter the space where my office is at Orange Therapy, you will find a waiting room. And this waiting room is right inside the front entrance, and you can let the front desk person know that you are here to see Julie, and they'll just say, have a seat. She'll be up for you shortly. And you'll take a seat on one of the comfortable seats that they have for you. Ed's here doing the tour with me. And just have a seat, relax. What I ask my clients to do is to text me when they've arrived, and I'll come up and get them when it is time for the session. When I come up, if it's a first session, I'll have Ed on a leash, of course, and we'll come up and greet you and welcome you into the building. And then I'm going to take you on a little tour to show you where things are, just so you know, should you need to use them. So the space is quite comfortable. And as we're walking down here, I may ask you, did you have any trouble finding the place? Welcome, so glad you're here. I'll point out the fact that there's a bathroom in the back of this hallway. You're welcome to go and use that at any time. And we will enter into my therapeutic space, which is Suite 120. Eddie, come. As we enter the space, I will let you know that you can sit wherever you feel comfortable. I have a sofa and some chairs, and the things in my office are positioned to make you feel at home. I keep the light low because if I don't, it stabs my own eyeballs. I might offer you a coffee or a tea or a water. You can help yourself to that as well. I've got a workspace, and then we'll sit down and we'll get to know one another. Okay, so now we are settled within the therapeutic space, and the work of the first session begins. So the way I start my first session is the way that most counselors do. I review my disclosure statement. It's a lot of legal information that people don't really read carefully, but it's really important. We talk about confidentiality and the limits of confidentiality. We let you know that everything that you say within the counseling space is going to be between you and the counselor, with a few exceptions, of course. You know, if you've been watching this channel for any time at all, you recognize that Ed is here with me, but he's very HIPAA compliant. Outside of that, if you were to say that you were going to leave the session and end your life, I would have to break confidentiality for that. Of course, you understand that. If you were to tell me that you were going to leave the session and harm somebody else, I'd break confidentiality for that too. It's called duty to warn. The fax machine's going. In addition to reviewing the limits of confidentiality, I will explore with you what it would look like to do a mandated report and when mandated reports are required. Because as a professional counselor in the state of South Carolina, and as a professional counselor anywhere, we are mandated reporters. We need to protect those who can't protect themselves. So if I hear that information that indicates a child or a vulnerable adult is being harmed in any way, I have to make a It's not up to me. All right? And I'll ask my client if they have any questions at that point, and we'll explore further where there might be questions. And then we get into the meat of the biopsychosocial spiritual assessment, as it's called. I'm going to gather a bunch of information from a whole bunch of different directions to try and get a picture of who you are as a person in that first session. Not just so I can get a bunch of information, and not that I can know entirely everything about you from that first session, because it's a 50-minute clinical hour. I'm not going to know everything there is to know about you in that first session. But I do want to get a clear picture of what it is you are coming in for and what makes up you, so that I can help to develop a treatment plan that's going to work for you. The treatment plans are written for each individual person who comes and sits in front of a counselor, because we know that your experiences impact the way you see the world and impact what tools we need to help shore up. So I'm going to look at what are your growth areas and what are the areas of improvement that we need to work on. What are the thinking patterns that are evident that we need to maybe explore and rectify, so that activities in daily living aren't being impacted negatively. So I'm going to ask questions from the biological side. I want to know if you know, were you born at full term? Were there any problems with the labor or delivery or the pregnancy itself? Did you meet your developmental milestones? I want to know, were there any illnesses, or are there any illnesses that you're currently dealing with? I want to know about your biology. I want to know about your psychology in your family. I want to know, is there a history of mental illness within your family? Because certain mental illnesses do have a hereditary component, and so I want to know what that looks like. I want to know, even if it isn't a hereditary component, was there a mental illness or was there substance use and abuse within the family? What traumas were experienced? Because these things all impact you as an individual and inform my treatment plan. Outside of the biology and the psychology, I'm going to look at the social aspect of your life. What is your network looking like? Who are the people that you rely on? What is your connectivity to different groups? What does your support system look like? We're going to explore that, because we are social creatures and we are meant to have connection. So we're going to look at ways to improve connections. We're going to look at boundaries within relationships. Are they healthy boundaries, or are we looking at enmeshed systems? And again, to inform what it is we're going to do going forward. I'm going to look at spiritual aspects of your life. What is your faith base? What is your belief in this area? Because a lot of people struggle with questions of faith, even when they're not faith-based. What is going on in the world? What really matters? What matters to me? So we're going to explore all of those different things, because they impact us. We're going to look at the physical aspects. How active are you? One of the most important things you can do for yourself, for your mental health, is to exercise. So we're going to look at that. And yeah, I'm going to explore that with you, and I will make recommendations based on that. I will make recommendations if I'm hearing certain things to maybe go and have a checkup with a doctor, because we can use all of the tools in the world, and if there is a physical component to something that you're experiencing, then the tools are not going to be effective. We will need to move in physically if it is a physical aspect. Now, there is psychological fallout for physical illnesses, and we can work on those things. But if something is basically at its base a physical situation, then we need to resolve that. Low thyroid, low vitamin D levels, certain other illnesses can present as depression. Heart issues and high sugar, high caffeine diets can present as increased anxiety levels. So we need to look at that. And I'll look at diet. I'll ask questions about that. Because again, I want to find out about that aspect. And we make that part of your counseling as well. And I want you to know, as much as this is an interview that your counselor that I am providing for my clients during that first session to get a picture of who they are and develop a treatment plan. It's as much an interview of you that you are doing of me to find out, are we going to be a good fit for one another? So if you're going to counseling and it's your first time in counseling and you get into a session and you're like, I'm not sure that I'm going to work well with this person, it's okay for you to say that. Maybe give it 2 or 3 sessions, because counseling in itself can feel uncomfortable. So is the discomfort because this person and you aren't hitting it off, or because the session itself is something that you've not done before? Remember, when we're doing things we haven't done before, it can feel uncomfortable. The way that the counselor works can feel uncomfortable. I have a pad and my pen, and I will write notes while people are talking to me. And sometimes people are looking across like, what is it you're writing down over there? If you want to know, I'll tell you. I'll hand it to you. You can look at it and see what it is I'm writing down. I'm writing down notes to keep me on track. Sometimes I need to circle back and talk about something that you mentioned, but I don't want to interrupt you. And sometimes it's just details I want to make sure that I include in my documentation. Counselors have to write notes after session. And we do that. We're ethically and legally required to keep notes. Ed's taking a drink. We write our notes in such a way that we're able to follow from session to session what it is we were covering. We need to be able to do that to stay on track with you. We also need to provide those notes in case they're required legally by somebody. And I want you to know, we write those notes also in such a way that we are protecting your anonymity as much as possible. We're not writing detailed, verbatim notes about what was covered in session, but we might say, client is struggling with relationship issues with significant other. Client is struggling with, client reported frustration with behavioral patterns within the home. So we want to be able to protect people as much as possible while staying on track with people. So your counselor has to do that. I happen to take notes during session to keep me on track with that. Some counselors don't. It's all the way they work, and we're all a little bit different. I like to provide my clients at the end of the first session or at some point during the session with at least one tool to help them with something that is going on that is really causing difficulty in their life. One tool, one suggestion to try to implement before we meet again. In that way, we're already starting on the treatment plan before I have a treatment plan together, but it will be a piece of it. I hope that demystifies a little bit of what counseling is going to look like. Now, the following sessions are going to be different. I usually tell my clients that the second session can be a little more bumpy because we're figuring out how exactly we're going to work together. But usually by the third and fourth session, we're rolling along pretty well. If you're not feeling comfortable with your counselor within a few sessions, just let them know that you're going to seek counseling elsewhere. We do our best to not be offended. We're human. But we do our best to not be offended because we understand that for you to do your best work, you have to feel comfortable with the person across the room. I want you to know, as a client potentially coming into Orange Therapy or to another place, that we do our best to offer what Carl Rogers calls unconditional positive regard. That unconditional acceptance, whatever it is you bring in, we have a level of understanding of the difficulties in your life and what brought you to this point. It's not our job to judge. It's our job to help you explore and uncover and learn new ways of being so that it's not going to cause the same difficulty going forward. I hope that you find that in your counseling space. I seek to provide that here at Orange Therapy, where you are welcome.